We wanted to have an opportunity to share with the community what's been going on, the progress being made. There's not a day that doesn't go by where somebody says, when are we breaking ground? What are we doing? Where are we at? And I try to remind everybody that there's more going on right now, pre-groundbreaking, than probably when you actually start building. Mike and I were in meetings since 7:15 this morning with different department chairs. We did that again Monday. We had done that Monday too, so it just constantly, but it's not just that. This goes all the way back to the Educational Visioning Committee, where we had 40 community members, teachers, staff, parents, business partners, that talked about education for the 21st century and what that looks like and how does that translate into a physical space. And so this has been really escalating now here. The last few months, there's actually starting to be some form. It's not in its full state yet, and I'm going to let these guys go into the architectural detail. The only other thing I wanted to mention to you before we get started about this is there is an important renewal issue on the ballot on May 8th. Just so you know, regardless of anything you've heard, it is not an increase in taxes. It is not. It's just a renewal of a levy, an emergency levy passed 5 years ago. It just continues to be levy. It's for operations only. This is all construction. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure you knew that. We appreciate your support. This is an exciting time in our history. And I'm just really pleased. I've got our two lead guys, but trust me, and they'll probably tell you, it is a huge team that these guys lead. Mike Parkinson is our lead architect with Steed Hammond and Paul architectural firm, and Pete Becker is the lead construction manager that leads that whole process. He's the guy that has the trailers when the thing starts coming up out of the ground. He's getting everybody where they need to go, when they need to be there, and all that good stuff. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike and let you guys go on.
Well, welcome everybody. I hope you're as excited as I am. As Larry said, there's been a lot of things going on lately, and what you're about to see tonight is some of the things we talked about before. I wasn't sure who was going to be here from last time, so I wanted to incorporate some of those elements we had from the last presentation. But this is a process. It's a process because we want to make sure we engage your community, engage your district, your students and your staff, and make sure that we are really fine-tuning the design so it's specific for your community and your district. So Pete and I are here tonight. Pete and I have worked together for a number of years now. But there are a lot of other horses in the stable. Here are some of the other consultants we have here on the table. Four Seasons, your commissioning agent. Kleinger's, your civil consultant. SHP, who I am with, is taking care of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and landscaping. Joby Smith and Associates for your kitchen design. GOP for your structural. Forward Edge for the technology component. CTL for the geotechnical and construction testing. And Mac Perrin for the environmental abatement and hazardous materials. So all those pieces, parts that you see, there's a lot of horses in a stable, a lot of people who know a lot more than I do about dirt. Very important, right, Pete?
Dirt's important.
Dirt's important. So there's a lot of experts on your team, whether we're talking about traffic impact studies, understanding traffic counts, whether we're talking about, I'm not kidding, just the dirt on the project and what the makeup is and how your footings need to be designed. So from a schedule standpoint, there's really three pieces to a design portion of a project. There's schematic design. Sometimes you may hear the words SDs, design development, DDs, and then construction documents, CDs. Right now, we're in the schematic design phase, so we're very early on, but we've really the schematic design is meant for information gathering, making sure that we are sort of, as I would call it, putting the ingredients into the dinner, making sure we have the right pieces, parts, and everything as far as building relationships or programming, that we are accounting for all of your needs. So we're going to be wrapping that up here in May. In a typical state project, there's usually some sort of what we call downtime in between phases. But given the schedule of your project and given the relationship that SHP has with Skanska-Megan, we are going to sort of forego the downtime. We are going to go ahead and just sort of proceed from schematic design to design development into construction documents in a continuous phase. Why? Because we need to hit your deadline. We need to get you into these buildings as soon as possible. But that comes at a trust that Pete and I have together in our relationship in working together. So having Pete here at the table is very valuable because he is here. Yes, he is boots on the ground, and I'm there a bit, but Pete and his team are there to help guide in those decision-making processes. So as we're talking about schedule, as we're talking about dollars associated with your project, as we go through the elements of design, we want to make sure that we're hitting the mark and we're going to bring this project on time and on budget. We cannot afford to take 10 steps forward and then 20 steps back. Because of not having that design time, or that downtime, if you will, we're going to be in a continuous motion. So having them at the table as a collaborative partner is very integral to this process and going to help make this project successful. So we're going to be really, as I said, we're wrapping up schematic design here. We are really going to be wrapping up your entire building design by the end of the year here, which will be here tomorrow, in essence. We're moving at a lightning fast pace, but we're moving at a very methodical way of doing it. We are making sure that we are checking the boxes and making sure that we're moving in a way that benefits you, benefits your community, and making sure that we have all the pieces and parts that's going to help make this a great school for your students and staff. So from a big sort of big picture idea, you know, it's obviously going to be for about 1,500 students. We're looking at about 336 parking spaces. Altogether, 206,000 square feet. So it's a big school. It's a big school. It's a K-12 school. There's a wide range of students that'll be in this school, right? So we have PK all the way up to 12. Every one of those students learn in a different way, or they're they're educationally growing in a different way. So we have to make sure we account for how we treat those spaces and how we make this big building not feel so big, right? Because we're coming from 4 school buildings to 1, okay? 4 school buildings on a 100-acre site to 1 school building on a 100-acre site. So that story's much different. So rather than 4 schools on a 100-acre site, you are going to have basically a 100-acre park with a school. That's a much different experience. So we have to understand those things and what that means to your community. From a big picture kind of thing, up here what you'll see is what Pete knows that I absolutely love are swim lanes. So we have a lot of horses in our stable, as I like to call them, the consultants on our project. Everybody has a swim lane, which basically means they get a bucket, right? We got the big bucket that has all the money in there. We got to divide up that bucket to each one of our consultants to make sure that they are on track and following sort of where we are. Now, it's okay that maybe somebody goes a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, out of the swim lane, but we need to make sure we account for it, because at the end of the day, that big bucket of money isn't changing, okay? Pete and I know and value the dollars you're bringing to the project. It is a finite amount of money. We treat the dollars if it's our own at home. and we know that there is no room for error here. The good news is, yeah,
Mike, could you go back one slide, please?
sure.
Get the gym, our, the gym is 1,400 feet, or 1,400 seats, right?
Yes, sir.
And the auditorium is,
7,250, which does not include the stage.
500 seats.
Yep,
well, that's not the people that can get in.
Square feet.
square feet.
No, yeah, I'm sorry, that's the 7,250.
Yes.
That's a square footage.
So the size of the space, not number of people.
You didn't put the number of people.
Yeah.
Okay.
500.
7,250 would be a
Physical
big
seats.
auditorium. Yeah.
Okay.
Heck, we could heck the whole community in there for that size.
Ooh, so that's a big auditorium.
We'll talk next week about that, Larry. So getting back here to the buckets, Wayne, this is critical. So, you know, when I'm talking about Pete and his crew, and Pete and his pre-construction team and our relationship with Dave Williams on his estimating efforts, it's critical to have the builder at the table so that they have buy-in to the design, buy-in to the schedule, and buy-in to where we're going. So as we're going through this design process, I'm not just sitting here in this sort of off-the-side silo. They're at the table. They're integrated into the process to help make this more successful. So we also have 4 schools, as I've talked about before, that could be coming down. Grisby, we'll figure out later down the road. We're not quite sure, but it's on the table. So I love this slide. If anybody ever wondered what an architect's mind looks like, this is what it looks like. So what this is really meant to show is, here we are sort of in the research concept stuff, right? There's all this information out there. We're trying to get to know your community, trying to get to understand all these pieces, parts, and we are bringing together not only your community, not only our consultants, but police, fire, code, zoning, storm, Duke Energy, I mean, you name it, we're bringing them all to the table. We're not waiting until, hey, we're done with the design. What do you think? What we're trying to do is smooth out the bumps in the road. That's what this is meant to represent. I promise you there'll be bumps in the road. It's going to happen. But what we are trying to do is smooth them out and make them as minimal as possible. So part of smoothing out those roads is not only working with those agencies, but as I've talked about before, working with the vision the district has. So we've gone through a visioning process. So the stuff you're going to see here today wasn't as if the district, myself, and our team and Skansga just put this together. This is based on data, based on research, and based on budget, and based on schedule, based on real information. So we've talked about, right, the agencies, police, fire, code, zoning, public work, utilities. Larry's talked about, I think it was Tuesday. All the days I know. I joke with Larry, I said, Larry, when am I getting up, been up here in your office? I just need a cot. I'm up here all the time, and I love being here, by the way. But so for the last Tuesday and Thursday, let's say, we've gone through all these department meetings. So what we're trying to do before we get into design development is making sure as we are designing these spaces that we're hitting the mark on storage, hitting the mark on floor materials, lighting, mechanical, any sort of unique aspects to it. So as the sooner we are able to capture the sort of whole vision of Carlisle and their community, the better dollars we're going to be able to reconcile at SDs. The better information. So it's very, very, very important that we get this stuff done. You'll see standards up there, right? So some of the standard stuff, as we do kickoff meetings, we want to understand big picture ideas. We want to understand from an architectural standpoint, materials and stuff like that. From a MEP standpoint, I think Larry might be a qualified mechanical engineer here very soon. He's gone through countless meetings, not only with our engineers, but with Four Seasons as well as their consultant. And that is very critical from a a collaboration standpoint. So Four Seasons, they have this sort of expertise out here. We come to the table with this expertise. And we sit down and we talk about systems that are new and available out there that are tried, proven, and true. So as we're making these decisions for you, that they're made not in a vacuum, but in a collaborative manner and an informed manner. Research, we've talked about that. So early on, before Pete and I were even awarded the opportunity to work on your project, Skanska was out here taking a look at your site, understanding the existing utilities, understanding what we had to move in order to place your new project in there. So again, going back to not only collaboration, but to that research component. Site diagrams. So as we go through this stuff, you know, we're sitting here trying to position your building. We want to make sure that we're not just, what you're going to see here tonight, I want to just sort of preface, it's not the final solution. I know Pete probably wishes it was, and I'm sure Larry does as well. But we're getting there. But you know, as we go through these site diagrams, it's about us going through a number of iterations as far as, you know, how does it fit on the site? How does it react to Jamaica? How does it going to fit into the overall context of things? So as we go through and we understand cut fills, floodplains, and everything else, you know, what does all that mean? So here are some very preliminary site diagrams. Currently, and I don't think this is pretty much set in stone at this point. We're planning on placing your new beautiful PK-12 building right over there. So it'll be here soon, but we are going to fit it in here. Every once in a while, I'll rib Larry and say, geez, you give me a 100-acre site, but I only have this much to work with. So it dictates sort of the form of the building. It dictates sort of how we circulate and get around to some of those existing fields, whether it's the football or baseball stuff. Oh, sorry. So this is a master plan concept. What I want to sort of point out to you is this area and this area, general sort of rectangle, if you will, that's really what's in the scope. So when we talk about buckets of money, swim lanes, and all those things, this is the project, okay? All this other stuff you see up here is really a master planning component. So what I mean is there's no dollars necessarily in the project for it, but if we're able to get some good savings because of how big the school is and when we're bidding it. So if you look at, when I was speaking earlier, talking about wrapping up design at the end of the year, that's also very purposeful. That wasn't just, here we go. You know, it's when we're able to bid a project at the end of the year, that is the prime time to be bidding. One, because contractors want to load their books in. They want to get their stuff ready to go for that next year. So us moving at this pace is very intentional to give your community and the district the best bang for the buck. So, you know, depending on how things shake out, some of these things you see on this master plan component could come into the project. We don't know yet. But as we go through, and I've told you about research, going through department meetings, we also want to make sure, while maybe something from a dollar perspective is not in the project, we want to make sure that we are still making smart decisions on a possible future master plan on how everything could be. Yeah.
Jamaica Road, please show.
Yep.
Jamaica Road.
Right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right here is the existing high school.
Okay.
So from a more refined sort of element to that last sketch you saw, as we've gone through now, we've determined what we really want to do is we're going to have all the parent drop-off come here, loop around to these front entrances, both the elementary school and high school entry. Over here would be the high school parking lot, and then a separate drive for the buses. So we want to make sure that those elements are separated. The buses are also separated not only from the large buses, but a separate PK bus drop-off. So during midday, buses are going to come to the site. We want to make sure that your site is still safe and secure. So when those buses come out on midday, they're going to come here, loop around. There's a gate here that'll be there at midday, and they'll come here and pick up their students on the buses. Okay, so we still have that bus lot there. Now, for special event nights and all those sorts of fun things that I know that happen out here, these bus lots also serve as multifunctional. So as we go through this design process, what we want to try and do is make this the components of your school as multifunctional as possible. So as an example, this large bus lot you see up there, not only is it going to serve for morning and afternoon pickup for your students, but during the day, it'll serve as hard surface play area. And then for event night, it'll have overstriped parking for cars. So in essence, you know, we're giving you the best bang for the buck that we can. So you'll have really nice close parking for the football field, some parking over here, out here through the front, and then there'll be this component that we're working on through here where you could possibly have a walk-through piece through the building here, and then some additional parking on there. So it spreads it out on site, gets it almost on 4 sides, which is a good piece, and providing some flexibility. So that crazy sketch you saw of what an architect mind looks like, this is part of it. What you see up here is what we call building spaces, sometimes also referred to as program of requirements. So the state, in essence, dictates, based on your size district, what pieces, parts you get. The district throws in what they call locally funded initiatives, sometimes also referred to as LFIs, when you were talking about the auditorium, the gymnasium, or extra classroom. The state does not fund those elements, but your district is paying for those sort of in this side bucket, if you will. So all these little pieces, parts you see up here make up your building. And somehow magically they turn into a floor plan. So in really simple, broad, 10,000 foot ideas here. We've talked about separation of traffic already, right? We've talked about separation of the PK and 12. So 206-some thousand square foot building, that's a big building. We want to make the big feel small. We want to make sure it's safe and secure. So from a big picture idea right here, this piece, basically from this line over, is the elementary school, grades 1 through 6. From this piece over is the high school component, including the Board of Education. So in the middle section here, that parent drop-off that you saw in that earlier sketch, those kids, those elementary kids are coming through this vestibule here, over there to the cafeteria. If you're a high school student, you're being dropped off, you go here, back to that high school cafeteria. Same with buses. Those buses that you saw, they're up here on the top of the page. All those kids funnel into that cafeteria there. If you're a high school student driving,
Let me interject. We still are on a tiered schedule. So the secondary will roll first. They're in about an hour, then those buses go out, just like now, and then they come in an hour later. So
He said elementary 1 through 6.
it's pre-K.
Is it 1 through 5?
Pre-K.
You're gonna have
PK
sixth-
should be.
sixth grade with elementary
Yes,
now?
that came out of the
Okay.
Educational Visioning Committee.
Okay.
so one of the things that we found out this morning is we really want to have the PK here at the front. So we've made that change as we were going through that meeting. I was chatting with my design team back in the office, and they were making that change as we were actually going through that meeting. So the PK will be located here with the kindergarten classrooms up here. And then that PK bus drop off you saw, as I said, is over here. So if you're on a PK bus, you come right into these classrooms. If you're dropping off for PK, you park over here, walk your student right into those classrooms. So everything is very centrally localized.
Can you clarify, I get that it's a big building and things there, and they enter in different doors, but will the older kids be able to get to the younger side, vice versa? Or?
So we're going through right now and trying to figure out where to place those doors. From a code perspective, everybody in this building has to be able to have free egress out. So as we piece and part these things, we'll begin to, we've talked about placing some doors up through here, so to create some sort of visual barriers and stuff like that. But yeah, the idea is to create those barriers, but at the same time, if I go to the second floor plan here, to allow the students to go to the other grade level. So as an example, this being the sixth grade over here, this is the seventh grade, this is the eighth grade, and then this is 9 through 12. So we want to make sure that those students who are gifted also have that flexibility to very easily go to those other grade levels. So it's a very fine balancing act, and we're continuing to refine that and figure out what that answer is that works for your district, okay? So going back to sort of the overall concepts, over here's the elementary school, here's the elementary entry, here's that auditorium, here's the high school music, high school offices and board office, and then the high school classrooms. This is the new high school gymnasium. Both of these cafeterias are currently in a rectangle form for a very purposeful reason, because we know you're going from 4 buildings with gym to a 1 building with 2 gyms. So when I talk about flexibility, one of the pieces we talked about with your district is the idea of creating a, what's the word, Larry? What's the word we're using now? I can't remember the...
Caffeinasium.
Caffeinasium, I don't know. The bottom line...
Or the spelling,
The real piece that is allowing that cafeteria to be just more than a place where kids go and eat. So after hours, giving you that flexibility to use that space as a gymnasium will provide value to your students and community. Okay?
Those 2 spaces, one is for elementary, one is for secondary. Those are for relationship size-wise, those are both bigger than Alden Brown's current space. Those are, you can get full, Pee Wee courts in there. So,
With having the Board of Education incorporated into that, what would the purpose of keeping Grisby be?
well, I probably ought to use that one. The only thing, right now, our plans are still that it'll come down. It'll just be the last one, okay? Let's say something happens and we have more growth than expected. It would buy us some time if we needed to, okay? We have the ability in these to add in the future, add more classroom space. That is part of what we wanted to be able to do. So, but right now, to build it for a size that we don't know really isn't utilizing our tax dollars very well, because it's an unknown yet. But right now, Grigsby stands out of the footprint at this point. And so it'll be it'll eventually, I'm assuming, will go down, okay? But not at the rate we have to move and get switched in one summer out of the others. Okay, so that's why it's not that we're keeping it. It's just it's kind of the hold the trump card and let's make sure that we got these numbers end up right.
And the state does go through some projections. So, and that's part of the reason why your district has thrown in extra LFI dollars for those additional classrooms. Just because we feel with some future development that we're seeing around here, that there will be some growth rather than decline in this area.
Oh, that last slide, all those walkways almost looks like separate buildings, but are they all covered, everything covered under roof there?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We haven't got that bad in the budget yet, have we, Pete?
No.
All right. Pete says we're good. So history and heritage. One of those other components to understanding your community, understanding your district, understanding you're very different than Cincinnati Public. You're very different than the Coda local schools in which I live. Every community that we do work in design and construction is different. We want to make sure that we are capturing the pieces and parts that are important to you, not what is important to us, okay? So some of the pieces you see up here, there's, and nothing, I want to just say this right now, nothing has been set in stone. We have the historical committee alumni piece that we need to group with. We'll meet with them at the very early stages of design development. But just some ideas that are just being tossed around as possibilities, okay? I don't want any of this to be saying this is what we're doing. This is possibilities. So this beautiful light fixture that we see up here may look a little beat up. I see it as a very beautiful piece. We're hoping to possibly refurbish that piece and put it in the auditorium as accent lighting on each side of the stage. This beautiful Art Deco light that you see here, we're hoping to possibly include that into the vestibules that go into the auditorium. These stone archways, whether they're included in a future master plan for your stadium or actually entries into your new auditorium. The bell, I love the bell. I want to restore that bell for you so bad. I really want that bell to be out at your stadium. So every time that football is scored a touchdown, every time a baseball is hit and a run is scored, that bell is ringing. I love this bell. I really, really want to get it into this project. So these are the stone archways that we've talked about incorporated into the auditorium. These beautiful wood doors, 1930-ish, is that right? Ish. And it's still standing, okay? And it's rock solid. Needs a little love, but pretty rock solid. We want to look at the idea of possibly incorporating this idea of the history and heritage of Carlisle around this auditorium. So if you recall, here's the high school entry, here's the elementary school entry. Around this whole piece, going all the way around, would have this idea of the history and heritage of Carlisle. So over here, here's the stage component to the auditorium. Right here, what you see, that's that corridor that separates the back side of that music hallway. So as you come in, our thought is these pairs of doors here could potentially be used there and reincorporated back into the design of the new building. The wood gym floors. Larry thought I was crazy today, and I might be. I'm an architect, so. No. He's getting it from all angles, from very technical mechanical engineers to crazy architects. The top picture here, this is from your current pit that you have here, okay? This is from Chamberlain, and this piece is also down over there in your pit. The idea is, as a possibility, so what you see here, rather than a typical, I'll call two-sided gym, we're calling it the shoe. The shoe, as you walk in, off that main corridor or off that cafeteria, and you walk through these doors into the shoe, the three-sided gym with bleachers. On the wall, from that point all the way up there, we're going to make your floor not so much a floor anymore, we're going to make it a wall. our thought is to literally take that floor and put it up on that wall. So when you come in to that gymnasium, you are reminded of that history and heritage of the gym here today. So the center court logo, including the gym striping on the floor, all of that will be incorporated, possibly incorporated, I should say, into the aesthetic and interior design of that space. The Chamberlain seat, yet to kind of be determined. We're maybe thinking wrestling room. You know, could be the other end. Again, we don't know, and we're not here to make those decisions. And when we get together and have more meetings, we may determine that this is not where we need to go. So we're going to continue to reach out to your community, to the historical pieces, and to the alumni to make sure we're going down the right path. So from an overall massing standpoint, here's showing the high school parking lot, that parent drop-off you saw here, the high school drop-off, elementary, here's the elementary school wing, here's those music classrooms, the auditorium and your new gymnasium, and this pedestrian walkway connection back to your existing stadium. So as we're going through this design, there's a lot of beautiful, beautiful details, very subtle. You know, it's not stretching the bounds of the earth, but it's very beautiful. We love the shadow lines. We love just the simplicity of how the brickwork works together as an entire form to create a building. And how we not only respect your past, but how we move forward. How do we begin to blend where Carlisle was, where they are today, and where we would like them to be in the future. So as we go through these elevation studies, again, this is not the final answer. This is sort of one of those studies we're going through. If you remember early on in my conversation here with you tonight about those site diagrams, this is sort of what I would call an elevation diagram study, similar as we do site diagram studies. We go through and we evaluate and go through and understand all the pieces and parts. You know, the high school is much different than the elementary. So one of the sort of precedents and inspirational images is more of this sort of collegiate sort of imagery that you see here. In our mind, it sort of blends everything sort of together in a sort of a respect for the past while moving forward in the future. And this is a possible rendering or elevation of one of the classroom wings. Over here would be what we call the extended learning area. What I want to point out in those extended learning areas is that open space is meant to sort of give a spot to that creates all those classrooms a place of sort of community, allows them to break out and have multifunctional aspects to it, whether it's group team teaching, whether it's the media center. The idea in this building as part of the visioning process that the district has is bringing the services to the students, not the students to the services. So in each one of those learning communities that you saw up there, it's about making the big feel small, and it's about bringing the services to the students and not the students going to the services. This is just a very quick rendering. We know we have a lot more work to do on it. This is just sort of a concept and idea that we're working at. Again, this will change probably, I don't know, 10 more times as we continue to refine and hone in on things. This is just sort of where we are at today. And with that, I thank you. I don't know if Mr. Becker would like to add.
You know, we talked, we were in a meeting yesterday, and everybody keeps, Larry gets it, when you're breaking ground,
Yes.
But I will promise you this, you know, right now we're on track to start work on the site, you know, late August, tentatively. You know, school comes back to session, and there's a lot of meetings that we're gonna have, and you know, we had a good conversation yesterday about groundbreaking ceremonies. And we just went through this on a recent district. We were there together. It's really a community event, and it's typically a lot of fun. But you know, we don't just show up and put fencing up and start working and without communicating the plan. So we'll have a good sorted out plan on the impact of parking for Friday night football, the impact of where the little guys are going to practice in the fall if they're using the space back here. And actually, we're having our first really good solid meeting about that next Wednesday. And you know, there'll probably be 5 or 6 or 7, 8 meetings with that, and then we'll wrap up the plan. The district signs off on it. But we communicate, you know, as we give these community updates, more to come. The next big piece that we're going to be doing is basically in the month of May, early June, we're going to be doing the schematic design, sort of where the design's at. We're putting cost to it. We'll put a cost and a schedule to it, but really that's the key to develop a plan for, I guess our goal here on this job is, you know, protecting the budget, but then allowing enhancements to come back into the project. By enhancements, I mean, you know, making sure you got extra athletic space, making sure, you know, the teachers have some of those wish lists. Maybe it's making the right decision that makes maintenance of your building a lot easier over the next 10 years. It pays for itself in 5. But it's an exciting first big deliverable is exciting coming up here, and we're looking forward to it.
I do want to also point out, and Pete's being way too modest, as we get to what we call the end of the phase and go through the estimating, it should not be a surprise. As we're going, as I said, as we go through this process, they are integrated into what we are doing. So we are already testing the waters before we get to the end. So we're making sure that we're making the right decisions. So having Pete and his team at the table as we're going through this process is invaluable to us staying on schedule and making sure we're hitting the mark. So you're not giving yourself enough credit. You know I love working with you and what your team offers. So.
Questions?
I'm a little slow.
It's all right.
No, you're not.
Is there a second floor? Well, you said a floor plan, first floor.
There are 2 floors.
Any questions?
Yes.
We can get some.
Yes, the question was, is there 2 floors? The answer is yes. So,
The answer is what?
Yes.
yes, there is. And so, let me scroll back over to here. So one of the things, wouldn't it be nice to make a 1-floor school building on a 100-acre site? Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
But it's not right for you and it's not right for this district. I know as we go through this iteration that I have a certain box I need to work with, and you saw the box on that site plan. But also, in working with Pete and their team, we know that the more footings and foundations and roof area that we're able to not have spread out and make it compact, efficient, saves you money and dollars. So yes, there are 2 floors here. This is that first floor. So again, on the first floor, this is the elementary 2-story wing. Here's the elementary high school. Here's the high school music auditorium piece. Back over here is the elementary school and high school cafeteria. Back over here is the high school and board offices with your new gymnasium, and then the high school classrooms over here. So from a stacking standpoint, we want to make sure we are lining up with those first floor walls as much as we can. So this component you see over here stacks right on top of that first floor. Those offices you saw for the elementary are right over here below on the first floor. Here's the music classrooms below this piece. So we have some more educational spaces here. The high school board offices component that you saw on the first floor, we've stacked classrooms on top of that. And then here is really, in essence, close to a repeat of that first floor high school educational piece. So yes, there's 2 floors, and we've tried to stack them as best we can on top of each other to create a very efficient structure for you.
I don't remember hearing you mention various schools like the primary or middle school or intermediate or whatever they are.
Mhm.
You said PK through 6 or something and lump them together.
Why don't you let me grab that a little bit? What we anticipate with, between the first floor and the second floor is, as these would be more wings oriented. So this may be, because we don't want to lose our heritage, you're going to have, this will probably, and I don't quote me on this, it'll be to be determined.
It'll be in the paper tomorrow.
Yep.
Thanks a lot. This may be like the Chamberlain wing. The ones with the littlest ones would be the Alden Brown wing. And as we get into this new building, that becomes an identity to that. Okay? And it makes sense? Or the Chamberlain wing may be across here. Okay? So that kind of
So we don't know
helps
yet,
you
that's why
understand.
you didn't mention it. We
Well,
haven't decided that yet.
right, that hasn't been established, but we know that those pieces have to be in there.
Larry, you had said that we're keeping the Grisby for right now, but I thought all 4 buildings had to go before the state would help us.
The building demolition,
It's, yeah, go ahead.
in the agreement with the state, so the state's co-funding the new PK-12 building. What they create in the agreement with the district and every other district in the state is they call them demolition and abatement allowances. So it's an allowance. So the budget has an allowance for the high school, for Grigsby, and the other 2 buildings. So it just simply becomes, if you don't demolish that building, they take the allowance back. So it's not mandated that, because a lot of districts
Not
sell.
men, but not all 4 all at one time.
Yeah, the state
Correct.
doesn't dictate that, because they know a lot of communities like to keep their building. But part of the agreement with most districts is, you know, if we're gonna build you a new one, you gotta demolish it, and here's the allowance of money that you're gonna get for that.
So wouldn't.
There is no money for keeping Grigsby.
Okay.
It wouldn't be-
Okay.
It wouldn't be a cost savings to keep it. The state doesn't
No.
get that money back.
Correct. Now, it just means, to be honest with you, the last day, we'll have a different school schedule that last summer. So we'll probably be out of school prior to Memorial Day.
Oh, okay.
Okay? And we'll be staging that month prior, organizing what things go out of the high school, go into the other building. This is gonna be the wild stuff. As you get right towards that switch over, as soon as that last day is done, we clear it out, we clear everything out. That building's gotta go down, because we have, from the end of school to the start of the next school year, to get this parking lot done. So that's the first thing. And then we'll start south, Alden Brown and Chamberlain, and then Grigsby sits over here. The only reason it's probably asked is because it's so imperative we get the other ones going, because of the switch over, okay? And then we'll move lastly on where Grigsby was, okay? And again, part of it is, I'm not convinced that we're gonna stay flatlined in our enrollment, which is what the state is saying, and that's why we put extra dollars in, because I'm like you, I'm here. I've been over there. I see what's going on up here. I see what's going on over here. And I see a lot of construction, and I'm going, that usually means an increase. I don't see any of them going away, I see more coming in. So it's just kind of like that. You know, that's why we put extra money into the LFIs originally, for the additional space, the gym space and the auditorium, as well as the classroom space. Because we hope they'll reevaluate, which they do, I believe, as we go down through this. They'll look at the enrollment studies, and they may kick a little bit more in. We're hoping, which would be nice.
What is the current enrollment?
Approximately 16, 15 to 16.
So the new school size just for that current enrollment? Or is it larger?
It's a little bit more.
Students, you got 50.
So is that 1479, that's current, or that's what the new building?
14?
1,400.
Yeah, we're at 14 and almost 15. Almost 15.
That's student.
That's student, that's a gymnasium.
Yeah, I'm talking about,
That's just a gymnasium.
that's where the money comes from, is filled up the game.
Originally, they only would co-fund because of the enrollment studies, which they do. You can't do it independently. They have to do it. To get their money, they listen to it, which was $29 million that they're throwing into it. They only allowed a 800 seat or 600.
Gymnasium? Yeah, roughly
Original.
around there. Yeah, around there.
It was either 6 or 800 seat stay inside arena. Ours is 14 right now, or just under 14.
That's
So
out there right
we
now.
wanted to make sure we could at least hold what we got. We can't be small.
No,
So we put LFI dollars in there so that we would have the ability at least to have the same size. Yes?
So, given that we don't have, the building's not gonna be enough quite to hold what we have currently, are we gonna put a cap on open enrollments that come into our district?
That would be an option, but we do have enough to hold
You know
everybody.
what I'm saying? I mean, 'cause-
Oh, if we ever get to that point, sure.
Because Mark's Poland, they're doing a new construction site over there, they're talking 300 homes over there.
yep, they're starting to.
That's a lot of extra, you know,
Oh, I get it. I get it.
extra kids.
And
Yeah, we're going.
could very well.
We're becoming.
like
a
I
city in
said.
a few more years, we're gonna be a city again.
That may happen. I don't, you know, and like I said, they're not gonna. They're almost like, you know, they're like Major League Baseball. They're not gonna cancel a game because of a forecast of rain. They want to see it rain, and so unfortunately, the state's not gonna give us more money until they actually see that physical number go up.
Are there chances?
We took everything we could get from them. Let me tell you.
Are there chances though, in the next few years in the development, that we can get more money from the state if our students increase?
What is that? I don't know.
It's a possibility. It's nothing guaranteed because if their bucket dries out. I mean,
Yeah, for me to say what Columbus is going to do, I don't know if I would bet on anything.
So this is just the size of the current enrollment. This
Uh,
assumes
yeah,
a
with
steady
some-
enrollment.
with some future growth in it.
yeah, we've got a little, but we put extra core space in it. We put in an extra 7,500 into the building. So we have some room to grow, yes.
Oh.
But to your point, Karen, we get to that point,
Yeah. 'Cause we got
you
a
know,
lot of them.
I don't know if we're gonna be there when we open. I doubt it. That was the other reason I'm sitting there going, well, before we do anything at Grigsby, let's just make sure. I'm being cautious. That's all with that case. And if not, and we actually start to grow that much more,
Yeah.
you know, then we can always down the road address additional growth. These buildings will be designed that we can add extra classroom space. We go that far. Yes.
Hi. Oh, this is a bit off topic. So, I was hoping you could shed some clarity on a rumor I had heard, and it was that there were some talks with the Atrium about building a new stadium, perhaps, and I wasn't sure. I've heard a few different things, so I was just curious if you could clarify.
Well, we've approached them and we've asked, and we shall.
Wait and see.
We are in that. We would like to. Wouldn't that be nice? I don't know if I can say a whole lot more about it other than right now it's not happening, but it's not
Out of the question.
out of the question. Okay? We're also looking at some other possibilities that are separate from this you know. But we're looking, we're always looking at that. You don't see it as much as you used to. We had a meeting, I don't know when it was, it's been a couple of months now, with one of the people that's supposed to be in charge of it. Now we've been told to talk to somebody else, and so we're trying to shake the tree a little bit.
Yeah. Well, my husband works for Kettering Health Network.
Yes.
And he just.
Kettering Stadium sounds good to me too.
Yeah. He just wanted to make sure if Atrium shuts that down, that you explore other avenues because.
Oh, absolutely.
We're really looking to really start doing a lot of community outreach, so that's another possibility.
I'd
Sounds
love
like
to
a
have
meeting.
some contact information, you know.
We'll schedule for Monday.
I want to make sure. Would one of you get it? But seriously, no, the only reason we did that initially was because right now there's a short-term agreement with athletic training and those kind of things. But I know Kettering also provides those pieces as well. So are there opportunities? Absolutely.
Dr. Laughlin would be really be pleased to update that.
Oh, and it's needed, we know that. But
I've got another question. You was talking on the history of the building down there on Chamberlain Middle School. The bricks there, can we, oh, I don't need that now. Can we do use some of the bricks for like a flagpole and for ground cover and stuff?
What, for ground cover, unfortunately, no.
just so you know, for the viewing audience, that the question was, can you repurpose brick, such as the brick facade that's on, let's say, Chamberlain?
Yeah.
I don't want to necessarily speak for the district, but there's been some conversations about, as we take down those buildings, providing the opportunity for the district to have some of those, or the community to have some of those pieces. Unfortunately, brick pavers have a very different makeup than actual wall brick. So they'd be poor advice on my part to say, go ahead and use them as a brick paver. That would be bad advice on my part. Maybe we can incorporate them somehow into the history wall we talked about that goes around the auditorium. All those things, we don't have an answer for yet because we're still very early on, and we still have more outreach to do to that historic team that we talked about, and the alumni team, and to the larger community at large. But yes, all those ideas, we want to make sure we capture and get as much as we can into them because we understand the importance that means to everybody.
And we'll certainly make sure that there'll be plenty of bricks if anybody needs a souvenir.
Sell them, I mean, if anything, we can.
You know, just so you know, we just haven't figured out how that would.
That's easy.
And then it might be a pile that says, hey, for the next week, go ahead. I don't know yet, we haven't gotten that far, but yes, I'm sure.
There'll be plenty of
people
bricks for free.
Yeah.
Or for sale as a fundraiser.
Yeah, that would be a good fund, I mean,
Yeah.
if we can't use them on the ground.
There's gonna be a lot of bricks. If you need a barbecue at home,
Supply our
we'll
own
help you
water
out.
from our wells, our well city water.
The question was, do we have well water? Right now, our schools are on well water, but we can't stay on well water in the new facility. We're required.
That'd be an added cost.
Okay, now that said, we've also looked at repurposing one of the wells or even a different well for athletic purposes. Because I really am not going to pay to water a field. I don't know, that bothers me a little bit. You know, but I understand it. So if we can pull something like that, we're allowed to do that.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
We heard, you know how rumors are, that there's going to be a lot of glass walls, not just glass windows, but glass walls in between classrooms.
Well, I don't know if we've got that. They don't even know where the windows are yet.
I mean, the hallways. We had heard that.
Will there be some? I imagine there'll be some. I don't know.
Yeah,
We haven't got to that detail yet.
So when this building was built, we didn't have all these
Right.
The open top.
Sure.
But we will have walls and not just glass walls.
There'll be walls. Now what, I don't know what the
In other words,
component,
you can't go walk down and look into a classroom and walk down the hallway.
we haven't even got that far.
Because if you do this,
Yeah. Oh, hi, there goes another.
Yes?
I assume security measures will be updated as far as double doors to get in at the entrances and
Yes.
and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Question was about security measures in the new facility.
Yes, and for obvious reasons, we can't get into the nitty-gritty detail for a public forum, but what I will promise you is that, yes, there will be secure entry vestibules, state-of-the-art security system. We are working with your police, fire, and code officials. We have worked on countless facilities and have learned a number of things throughout the year that we are incorporating into this design that'll give your district a very safe and secure building. So, without getting into the weeds of the details and sort of how it's all going to work, yes, it will be very safe and secure. Better than anything I promise that you've seen yet today.
To just kind of piggyback off that, I know you said there was 2 main entrances. Thank you. 2 main entrances. Is that the only entrances? One on the elementary and one on is that the only access to the building?
Again, the question was, there's the 2 main entrances, what are those? Are they the only ones?
Oh, come on.
Those will be the only 2 that you can access during the school day
Yes, those will only
Yes.
be, well,
in that regard.
well, in the morning and afternoon, those will be the 2. During occupied hours, the only way to get in this building is the high school entry or the elementary school entry. By code, I'm supposed to have so many exits out of this building based on the occupant load. So yes, there will be a number of entries or exit points. But those exit points are not entry points, and we try and limit those to really the code minimum required. We know that by providing really beyond that, we're creating a sort of a security piece to that. So we are being very thoughtful of how we're approaching those, even the ones that are required by code, and how we treat them on the exterior side, is being thought of as how we treat those. But those conversations are not just being sort of held with us, Skanska, and the district, but we're also involving your agency. So as we go through, we start the design development process here very soon, in June. So we've already met with them. We gave them the big, broad scope. They really haven't seen this stuff yet. So that's the next layer as we begin to refine the design, bring them in and say, hey, here's where we're at, here's what we're thinking. We have technology, security engineers for your project, but that's their sole expertise. So part of being an architect is you gotta know a little about everything. I don't know everything that people know about dirt. I know enough to be dangerous, but we have experts at the table. One of those experts is a technology and security expert that'll be working with us and your agencies to make sure we are providing a very safe building.
Denise, did we get your question? Okay. Yes, like I said, and again, we're not totally designed, but you're talking about going through one set of doors, being buzzed in, going into a reception area, which you may have to get buzzed in, and before you can enter into the student occupied area, you'd have to get released through there. So it's a little bit more, you're just going to be able to walk through, but yet, which I think we have to do. And that's what the new building gives you versus, well, we didn't have to talk about this.
But at the same time, it's still going to feel like a community.
But it's still going to feel nice.
It's going to feel like
great.
A place you want to go and teach, a place you want to go and learn, a place you want to bring the community together. It's not going to feel like a prison, I promise you that, but it will be extremely safe. There are a lot of pieces, parts, and components that are gonna go into this design that are just gonna, it's amazing what we're doing.
Karen, go ahead.
The storm shelter, did you guys resolve that situation?
Storm shelter.
I'm sorry to bring up a sore subject, but I was curious what.
I'm throwing that ball to you. If you want me to talk about it, I will, but.
Right now, what's happened is don't quote me on the actual name, the people that make up building codes in Columbus, who make up the laws for all the building codes, created a standard that says, and this just happened less than a year ago, after we passed our issue, that says these new schools have to have a facility that can house the entire population of the building and withstand an F5 wind. I'm not sure, that's 250?
Around 250, yeah.
250,
Yeah.
That's pretty big wind. But, yes, we have it. I mean, it's going into the plans. That's what this will be, area, but with that said, there's some movement going on in Columbus to grandfather people like us who have already passed, and so maybe you have a 2 or 3 year grandfathering time in, so that you can plan on it, because you just don't say, well, we're going to build this piece and it's free. It's not free. Okay, so the state will kick in their portion, 68% of the cost of it, but we've already been to our Publix. Okay, Mason, the early childhood center, they've already been and voted and set that piece. And there's about, how many million right now?
Total from the state kicking in?
Is it almost a billion?
1.5.
Bill, with a big B.
B, yes.
Yeah, if you look at the entire state. So what's happened is myself, several other superintendents have been hounding our senators and our representatives about, you might want to think about this before you vote something in and see what the ramification is to your own constituents. Prior to it, for us, it equates to $257,000. Well, that's not chump change, That's not chump change. So there's some very active movement going on right now in Columbus to rectify that. I'm hopeful, but we'll see. But in the meantime, we're going to plan for it.
Yeah,
we are going to plan for it.
We have to plan for it. It has to have dedicated restrooms.
Which would be your locker room spaces.
Yeah, the locker room spaces. Yeah, it'll have a, your typical metal deck on top of the truss joists, if you will. But on top of that, there'll be some concrete. We've gone through, this isn't, here's the good part. There's many other projects. Our firm does a lot of school buildings. Carlisle is not the first one we've had the opportunity to work on with the storm shelter. So we are gaining knowledge very fast in our office. We have a consultant who just does storm shelters out of Kansas as well. So they are at the table providing guidance. So this isn't being done in a vacuum and a hope and a prayer. There's a lot of, I'm telling you, a lot of experts you have on your project that are not here tonight that are invaluable to making this project very successful.
Okay, now you're getting to your limit. No, I'm kidding. I'm playing with that.
This won't cost the school anything. When did our logo change from the Indian chief headdress to a brace?
To that?
Yeah, I'm like, was it in June?
I don't know. before I pre-me.
I
I don't know what it changed.
Personally, I don't like it. I mean,
Well, thank you, I appreciate that.
our stationery and everything used to have, you know, the Indian chiefs.
Right.
So, that's, it's just my concern, but.
Okay. No, I don't know when it changed, to be honest with you.
I don't either.
It's been a while. It's been there a while, so.
I've only been here a year.
I mean,
It's been at least 10 years ago. I don't know when. I have no idea.
It didn't officially change, I'm sure, it's just roundabout.
From what I know, it was a decision by a few individuals in the school to put that logo on the center of our basketball court, and from there it just spread.
Don't know when. I don't know when. How long's that been there?
I would say we've had that logo now for
I'm just guessing.
10 to 12 years.
Probably, yeah, I was thinking 10. It could be more.
How
The
long have you
C
been-
logo.
8 years? It's
Is that?
been over that, I know that.
Mr. Hook, I have a question.
Yes.
From an athletic perspective, where would the weight room and the locker rooms and coaches' offices, things like that be?
So we have the weight room and wrestling room located right off the main high school gym. We have the locker rooms and administrative offices and parts on the, what I would call the upper piece of this. So they're all centrally located around that main high school gym.
Well, I got a question about the gyms. On the elementary or junior high, like, you know, down here at our Chamberlain Middle School for the kids there, we have a game going down here, we've got one down there.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a gym, I mean, to do
Yes.
a full,
Yes, it's really used as a, first of all, this gym is bigger than what we've got. This is a collegiate style gym. This will be the biggest one in our
District.
league, okay? So, which creates an advantage, certain advantage for us. I would anticipate.
Now they're gonna know.
Now, don't tell anybody, but I think they're gonna be winded when they come here. We can divide, we'll have a curtain that can come down during the day. So we have a full-size gym here and a full-size gym here for high school PE, junior high PE, elementary PE. But for games, this also, actually those will be on this
oh,
side.
there's, okay.
There's seating on that gym for junior high,
Okay.
for Metro on the weekends to do that as well. Okay? So yes, that'll be the, well, practical purposes,
Okay,
the
I
junior
got
high.
another question. Are we gonna have a sunken-in gym, or is it gonna be flat? I love our sunken-in, I mean, we're called the pit.
I know.
Are we gonna still have that?
No, we got the shoe,
No, it's gotta be the pit.
The pin shoe?
the pit shoe.
Unfortunately, so as we go through, in all seriousness, as I've talked about, as we go through the process of research, process of understanding you and your community, we understand how important the pit is to you. But as I also told you, PI district also know that the bucket of money we have is a very finite money. There's no more money to be had. So we have to be very good stewards of those dollars, as if those dollars I have at home, right? It costs a lot of money to dig down. And we've done a lot of cost analysis with Scanscoming. We've talked about having them at the table early. What I will tell you is I've been doing this for 20 years. In my younger years, the architect might have gone down that road and went ahead and did the pit, because that's what we wanted to do, right? We get down to the beam piece, and then we got to go back to that whole redesign process, costing you more money, more time, more dollars. Having them at the table, having the district at the table, your community at the table, going through those department meetings, making those informed, we get how important that pit is. We understand the importance that it is to your community. We're trying to give you something similar, something still that's unique. there is still yet more to be defined in this, and I hope as we go through this process and have more conversations with you, we bring you back some really nice imagery of that new high school gym, that we're still friends, and you're really in love with the shoe.
Question.
Go ahead, Mike.
You say Larry, 84 feet is a college length, and high schools have a smaller length gym, right? You're aware of that?
Yes,
College.
yes.
You're gonna have the 84-foot college?
This will be a collegiate.
94.
94 is the
94.
collegiate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're gonna make them run another 10 feet, brother.
Wear them out.
We're gonna wear them
We'll
out.
wear 'em out.
Young man, I knew my numbers 50 years ago. It's a 94 feet?
Yeah.
I've measured out to here is 90 feet. I know it's right now.
Our current floor is not 90. The actual playing square is less than, it's not 90.
Oh, well, I know.
That's where you got your 80, 84, I believe, or 83 and change. The other one, the other one will be that.
The elementary
So
school.
you do have the ability, a high school, let's say our team, those where we have a big game that we want, that it's gonna be on the regular high school, they can make arrangements and go, we're gonna just get used to that shorter size. So we have the ability to play on a high school one. They don't have the ability to play on a collegiate size one.
Well, I've been to a lot of games all around, and I think we have one of the best and prettiest gyms around.
Absolutely, and I would include, I went down to Chamberlain today. I've been down there a couple times. I know it's not as flexible as what you have here. All these bleachers are gonna fold up and you'll have multi-cross courts and all those great things. That's a good thing. But I just love going in that Chamberlain gym, and sort of, it sort of has a pit feel to it, right? Because the stands are elevated off the floor. You have the fixed seating off to the side. And as a young kid who grew up in Cleveland, who went to Municipal Stadium, those columns make me smile that go right in front of all those seats, because that was Municipal Stadium when I was a kid. So listen, I didn't grow here, but I go in those spaces and I dig them. I love them. I know what you're saying. Yeah, yeah. I'm a sucker for old architecture. I'm not going to lie. So I get the beauty that you have here. We're going to be very respectful of it, and we're going to try and do that, understand the past, where you are today, and where we hope you to be in the future.
Yes.
So, leaving the gym side of things, and let's talk about the music department side of things.
Okay.
That's going to be up front in the building there, is what it's looking like?
Yes, sir.
Choir room, band room separated?
Yes, sir.
Regular spaces?
Yes.
What about the sound traveling from that space into the classrooms? How are we?
So here's the great thing about new technology. There's a lot of requirements about sound transfer ducts. I wish Steve Tossi was here. Larry would love to get another lesson in mechanical engineering. So there's even a lot of things that go into sound transfer ducts and sound sweeps, and we go through all that stuff. I mean, I promise you this is not our first. We understand the sound separation. That's why there's even that corridor there. There is a elementary school music classroom over there in that elementary piece, and concerns have been raised about that. We understand those. So we want to make sure as we go through it. So when we go through and we detail a wall, it's not what you see at home, okay? We do sound seals on outlets, sound seals on the bottom track of the walls.
That's great.
Okay? Sound travels just like water, it goes to the weakest point. So if all those parts are not addressed or designed or taken into account, basically what you've done is you put a big hole in your wall. All that other stuff you did doesn't matter. So working with Skanska and their construction crew, their understanding of our documents, us working collaboratively, we understand it as a team. So.
But we'll probably miss a hole here and there.
No, you will not.
Where's the libraries gonna be?
Excuse me?
The libraries.
Great question. So Lockers. I'm gonna go back here.
Did you say lockers?
No, libraries.
Oh, Lordy,
Okay, now,
library.
right,
I'll show you where all your libraries are. Lockers or libraries, I can show you both. Libraries. So we talked about educational visiting in the first part of the presentation, remember? One of those pieces that your community, district staff, students wanted to do is create these, the big not feel so small, wanted to create these individualized learning communities. We talked about bringing services to the students. The Media Center Library is sort of on its way out in a way. Not really. What we're doing is we're distributing it. So rather than having a centralized media center, what we're doing is distributing it to each one of these learning communities. So as an example, if this is the first grade learning community here, you have all these classrooms around here. You have the extended learning area, which could be used for multi-group activities between classrooms, can also be used as that media center. So what we're doing is distributing it throughout the whole school. So rather than having this be the media center where everybody goes, we're distributing it to each one of these learning communities. So where you see this sort of orangish color, that is where the distributed media center will be. Larry?
Yes.
One more question. As we anxiously await what this looks like, are there schools around here that we could maybe look to as a model of what ours might look like?
Yes. The district, in fact, has gone on a school tour of a number of facilities, one of them being Fairfield Freshman, a very similar sort of concept. Compass Elementary, Ridgemont was a PK-12 building as well. What was it? Is that? Yeah, I'm probably missing. Are those the three? Compass, Fairfield Freshman, Ridgemont.
Compass Elementary.
Yeah. All those.
Just Fairfield.
There's not a whole bunch of PK-12s built throughout the state of Ohio. So it's a unique animal. We do a lot of schools, but these don't come up very often, and they're a unique animal. You got to understand all those sort of separations, whether you want to combine, separated, and those sort of pieces, parts. This extended learning area, this concept of having the big, not so big in these learning communities is not a new concept. It's been proven, tried and true at some of the schools that the district, not some of them, all the schools that they've been at. So it's what we want to do here is, I wish I had a crystal ball. I don't. That's why I'm still working. We want to create a building for you that obviously fits your community, but we want to make it flexible. We want to make sure that spaces have multi-dimensional function. So when we talk about the gym cafetorium or whatever we call that thing, these cafeterias, typically if you go to a school, it's a cafeteria that's used, the kids eat, they leave, they walk in and out. We're making sure that when we're looking at these spaces that it's sized so that you could have that flexibility to use that space as a gymnasium when the building's open. Okay, so there's a very, very purposeful reason why that shape is there. Is it has to fit a gymnasium court. A lot of times the cafeteria may take on a more, what we may call an organic form, right? In this case, that's not appropriate here. That's not what you want as a district. So that's why we're looking at multifunctional aspects of these spaces.
Can you just clarify on those, I think you call them extended learning areas.
Mm-hmm.
Are those enclosed areas or are those like common areas?
Common areas.
Okay.
It would be like this. And we'll have more imagery as we come along. You'll get a better sense of that space. The idea is that what we try to do as best we can, and in a PK-12, 206,000 square foot building, it's really, really hard to do. But as we're going through this exercise, what we try to do is limit the corridors as much as possible. One, because if it's a corridor, all you do is travel. It provides really no educational value. Two, by just making corridor after corridor, you're adding cost and money to the project. So creating these functional spaces where you're able to bring together collaboration between staff and students to have a space to move beyond the four walls in front of them, to give them that opportunity. Today, we were down in your STEAM lab, and what I would say is how exciting that is. I mean, what a great program. And we were meeting with the teacher, and he's talking about all the great things he could do in that extended learning area. It's like, man, if I had my space and I had that extended learning, we could do all these great projects. I mean, you should go down and see the stuff they're building. It is really, really cool. Really cool. And all the little pieces, parts, I told him, I said, listen, give your kids an extra credit exercise. Have them design the space. Have them come down to our office and present. We'll show them all the fun things that we have in our office, all the collaboration stuff, and all the things that we are doing that pairs up with what they're being taught today. I mean, that space is amazing, and that's just one example of how that space could be used.
I admit I haven't been following it on the website. I understand you've had some things on there. I wonder in the future if we can look forward to having a on the website showing progress toward things. And I mean, ultimately, even the best would be some kind of interactive thing where we say, let's hear your ideas and be able to give ideas through the website.
Sure.
I'm thinking of the historical things, but other things too.
Absolutely. No. And two, when things start really gaining some structure to it, then we can start throwing more stuff, at it, so people can see.
Alumni Banquet, I could announce, go to the website, and they would
Absolutely.
see it, not go there.
Absolutely. But no, that's absolutely a good idea.
Do we know when the state or city is going to be doing any of the traffic studies out on Jamaica?
We've actually, so the traffic study is done by our civil engineers. Civil engineers are not only really good at knowing stuff about dirt, but strangely enough, they're really good about knowing about traffic. They actually have what they call traffic engineers. Traffic engineers, that's their sole purpose in life, to understand those pieces and parts. So we've gone through, we're gathering that data right now. Right now, everything from a very preliminary standpoint, as we go through the analysis, is looking pretty good as far as how things are shaking out. I mean, if we go back to that site plan, here's what's really working for you. Having the parent-student entry separated from the buses, we're able to bring in the parent drop-off here, and we got a tremendous amount of queue space to get those cars off the road. Anytime we have to begin to, Pete has a little bit of experience with off-site improvements. Would you agree with that? Gets pretty expensive pretty quick. So we're really trying to mitigate that for your district. So students come in, they'll park over here. You have the parent drop off there with that long queue space. And yes, we are going through and doing the traffic study analysis.
In the event that any utilities need to be moved, is that a cost we absorb, or the state absorbs, or the city?
So there are a couple utilities where we're building that inevitably we have to move. It's very minor in cost, but it's part of the entire co-funded budget.
It's already in the bucket?
Yeah.
Yep. Good question, though. I think we had a meeting with Duke Energy was it a week ago? I can't keep him straight anymore.
I know, Larry doesn't want another count.
One after another.
I am a big, so the number of consultants that you saw, there's a lot of horses in the stable. One of the things I like to do to make sure all the horses are in their right swim lanes is this, my ever so famous Pete will testify this calendar invites. So that's just a way of us communicating, making sure it's very easy as fast as we're moving to sort of forget these things. So we have bi-weekly core meetings where we got dates lined up, we got calendar events, and things are moving at a very fast pace. But yeah, it was probably 2 weeks ago. It was one of those agency meetings we had. So even they have, what I love is they called us before we had the opportunity to call them, and they want to make sure that they were meeting your district's expectations.
Change transformers, when they gotta, because one of the things that we have to do early site package is to make sure we're ready when we break ground, that the stadium is still alive. We can't lose utilities to the stadium. So that's one of the first things you're going to see too, is they'll get everything ready and then very quickly they switch it over to the new stuff.
Yeah, that's part of the coordination meeting we're having next Wednesday at 2:30. 2:30. So right after the core team meeting, we're having that meeting, and actually even prior to the core team and the site logistics meeting. That morning, we're going through the program of requirements just one more time. We can't afford to get into design development and say, oops. Not that an oops will never happen, but we're trying to really, really make sure we got everything. So we're going to go through that entire program. We're going to go through that entire plan and make sure we got everything accounted for that's going to make this project successful for your district.
Are you gonna have another meeting for the community?
I hope to have many meetings, as many as Larry will invite me to, but
Many as you want, did?
Well, like.
Well, thank you.
You can get on the line and check the, the progress of it.
It's a good idea.
All right.
Good idea. I am going to grab a few of you, pick your brains on some things. But thank you so much. Listen, I want to go ahead and thank Pete Becker, Mike Parkinson for coming this evening. We'll kind of hang around here, so if you got any specific questions, we'll do so, and we really appreciate these guys.
This is Charlie Chamberlain.
Yeah, I already told him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it. Have a great evening.